Hi, welcome. On this video, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about the response and reaction of the dog as relational change starts to cover off and take hold. Now, one of the things that you'll see as all the cards are getting laid on the table, so to speak, through this, through how the relational script, calls the issue of power out into the open and control. Is you're going to see oftentimes the dog start to get very upset, reactive, challenging, and almost nasty. Okay, depending on how much control that dog actually had. As you start to see certain reactions, now some of these reactions you'll see the dog begin to, what they're trying to do is they're trying to counter and make up the difference. Okay, because it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been in the way I describe it, in one of those hedge mazes when you were a kid, or if you ever watched the movie The Shining, Stephen King movie. There's a moment in the movie where it shows that big giant maze that Jack Nicholson ends up getting lost in, where the camera is kind of panning up and it's stepping back, showing just how massive that maze really is. And you can kind of equate that to the mind of the dog as this relational script is starting to cover off and shade in areas of the dog's thinking, starting to have a impact. What's happening is the dog knows that ultimately, and the dog is seeking to try to keep control of that which remains. And so you'll see, that's why you'll see overinvestment. You'll see a dog, whereas before you say, man, the dog was really getting kind of, going after this object or different things. Because what's happening is, especially if you look at it where the dog has had it's almost like a nuclear power plant. Okay, the person was the source of control in and through that person. So that's why the dog will go to certain people, because through that person, the dog connects all the dots that way. The dog will get to certain things, but they establish control through that person. So once that starts to fade out, okay, once these things start to shade in, so to speak, the dog will start to seek out secondary sources. They'll try to make up the difference. So you see the dog suddenly disconnect from the person and start to go to either somebody else or start to go to objects or certain areas. You start to see that. You say, man, the dog is acting crazy. But think of it in terms of power. It won't be so crazy if you really think about the response to losing control. And again, here's the thing. Depending on the level of control the dog had to begin with, you'll see that desperation, more desperation. And so here's the thing to really try to think about is it's the issue of, just moving forward. Really, that's why I say about using the structure, using the crate, using, very, strict kind of control. But while it's not just about control, while you're advancing change through the method. So the method speaks the language. It is what keeps pushing through and covering off. And so what you'll see is, and here's the good news. Okay, oftentimes when you see as this relational script starts to really, push forward, and the dog is really fighting for control, and you see this desperation go way up. And sometimes it'll be like, wow, it almost feels like I'm stepping back. Well, no, you're actually, all the cards are on the table now. You're seeing the real deal, whereas before you didn't see it because you're being totally, devalued, objectified. But now you're fading into the picture differently. And so, but here's the good news. A lot of times when you see the greatest amount of desperation is usually when that's actually the tipping point. When that tipping point hits, then the dog will just release that power, release that control, and you'll see big changes really fast. So sometimes, when you see this level of, challenge going way up, just understand that oftentimes can represent the greatest amount of change suddenly, because it's like going over that hump, so to speak, because the dog is like, you know what, I'm really gonna, I don't have much left here, so it's all, I'm all in. It's all or nothing. They're kind of like, they're calling your bluff. The cards are going on the table. So just understand that sometimes what you see isn't always bad news. You have to push through, of course, and you have to do certain things to make sure that bad things don't happen. Okay, like you may have to use a muzzle at times. You may have to use the crate a little more often as you go through the process to keep the dog from gaining through the process. But again, when you hit that tipping point, oftentimes that what you see sometimes can represent the big change is about to happen. So anyway, just something to think about, this issue about control, the reaction of the dog, how it covers off. You look at it differently. It's very interesting if you just look at it from terms of control and power, and how the dog's trying to regain or counter what's happening. So anyway, thanks for watching.